Welcome back, TLPs. We joined you following the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, which featured broken records, new highs, new lows, as you could tell by the episode title. Plenty of excitement to carry forward through the next 22 rounds of this 2025 championship. I'm Tristan Ryans alongside the Kevin Walker. This is the Lap Podcast, and if this is your first time joining us, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. It helps support the channel, and it costs you absolutely nothing at all. Also, feel free to follow us on all the socials. They're scrolling at the bottom of the screen as we speak. And as we get this thing going, Kevin Walker, let's unlap the grid. Let's talk about the Chinese Grand Prix weekend. I want to know your thoughts overall as the resident McLaren fan walking out of the Singapore International Circuit. How are you feeling about this Grand Prix weekend?
I can't feel any bit better. It was I would say it was a pretty rough start for whenever it came to sprint race time for McLaren. They just the car didn't look good. It didn't look like they're responding. The tire deck.
Man, if a P2 looks rough for McLaren, and
it just, I don't know.
That's a pretty crazy rough.
I get it, but it felt off. It just didn't feel like it was a McLaren weekend there for a second. And it was dominated by Ferrari. It was dominated by Lewis in particular, setting a lap record. And then Oscar comes out, has a phenomenal qualifying, follows that up with a phenomenal race, a new lap record. He did an incredible job. A good weekend overall for McLaren. Lando, and I was really happy to see they weren't challenging each other. Disregarding pace or whatever. They didn't really challenge each other. There was no papaya rules or anything like that. It was just, hey, this is Oscar's win. He had a phenomenal qualifying. He did a good job there. This is Oscar's win. He deserved it. It was a good McLaren weekend. But that's not all that happened. But it was a really good job by Oscar. Really good weekend by McLaren overall. And, hey, got a new lap record in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Two of them.
So sprint obviously was really exciting for a lot of people. Lewis Hamilton getting his first win, whether in any race format, really, for Ferrari, had a 7-second gap almost. It was like 6.8, 6.9 seconds to the McLarens behind. Oscar Piastri obviously finishing P2, Max Verstappen pulling out a P3 in the sprint. What do we feel about those new sprint trophies? It's like a rotor and
I saw them.
They
were kind of like smacking it up against their hand, and they were like, "Man, this thing's kind of."
I think I saw something about Lewis like referencing that it's kind of like a CD, and Oscar didn't know what that was.
Oscar didn't know what a CD was.
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're all young.
I get it. But I was like, damn, he didn't even know what a CD was.
I say that like I'm really old, and you make
He's
fun.
Really old.
Shut up.
So old. You have no idea.
I'm not that old.
We'll never disclose his age, but
we'll never disclose it. What are you, 17?
What are you, like 3 years away from
Social Security?
Yeah,
dude, I can't wait. Now F1 tried something new with the sprint trophies, though, giving them like brake discs. Those are neat.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't do that again.
Lawson kept the pressure up. He made up 4 places to finish P15 after he started P19. So he had something to build on during the sprint weekend, but overall the race fell flat. Speaking of the race, mega win for Oscar Piastri, converting a new lap record pole to win. The lap record set by Lewis Hamilton, literally broken the next day by himself. No. Excuse me. Oscar broke his own record twice.
It was Michael Schumacher's record
initially going into the weekend.
Yep.
And
you would know that if you tune into Kev Talks Track.
Well, I think there's a bit of a caveat to this that I didn't realize was a possibility. So the actual race lap record is still held by Michael Schumacher.
Yep.
Yeah. But qualifying record might be different.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's look into that a little bit more in depth next time. So we weren't entirely wrong, but Oscar Piastri, new lap records regardless, to grab pole for and then converted that pole to win. So super impressive drive for him. Lando Norris, a very solid P2 that almost fell away from him because of those braking issues.
Yeah.
George Russell was this close to him at the end of that race.
It got a little dicey there towards the end. And something I do want to note, because it's something that I think for McLaren fans and F1 fans in general, when they think about Oscar Piastri and they think about his wins, we've seen him weirdly dominate sprint weekends, kind of like that's kind of been his thing. That was his first ever actual F1 pole.
Yeah.
For qualifying.
Yeah.
Because all his other poles have ever been for sprint weekends. So
dude,
that was his first ever F1 race pole.
Yeah, Netflix is going to eat that up.
That's kind of crazy to think about.
This is overall his best weekend
because he
had a P2 in the sprint, which is, like that's still a very, very good result.
Right.
And it ended up converting the pole to win. Like the developments that McLaren put together after the sprint, that's what made the difference the entire weekend. You went from losing by almost 7 seconds to beating out the Mercedes by 11 seconds by the end of the race.
Right.
Which, like, speaking of Russell and the Mercedes, that's a really strong weekend for them to hang their hats on. George Russell calling it arguably one of the best weekends he's had in Formula One, period. And if you're Mercedes, and as the resident Mercedes fan, got my, very small little Mercedes logo here. As the resident Mercedes fan, like that's a great weekend to hang your hat on. You were only 11 seconds back after a full race distance. So with that in mind, like, I know McLaren have had a really strong start of the season. We've got 22 rounds to go. Like that as a Mercedes fan gives me a lot of hope that maybe they do start trying to push for one of these titles this year. Like maybe they are a little bit ahead of schedule. 2026, like all the reports seem to be pretty strong going into this next regulation. Mercedes feel really confident about where they are going to start next year. But even as they close out the 2025 regulations, McLaren, they're not as far ahead after the bit of wing adjustments that we saw coming out of Australia as well. Keep in mind.
I wouldn't say anybody looks unbeatable.
No.
Right? Like it's not like
it's so setup dependent and conditions dependent.
Like I understand as the McLaren fan, and I understand as listening and hearing all of the opinions of the people in F1 that it is McLaren's year to dominate.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen. And though we have won the first two late races, I do not think that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be a dominated year by one team, one driver all year long. No, I think this year is going to be set up to still be a very exciting year.
No, and I don't think there's any way that like McLaren are going to clear the field the way that like Max did a few years ago with that insane season, right? Like it's such an outlier. And like even as newer Formula One fans, admittedly, like 2023 was a rough watch, but that's not something that's going to be an expectation moving forward. We saw Ferrari pull out a 7-second win in the sprint. If the full race distance, who knows? That could have been up to 15 seconds with the right strategy and good pitting and whatnot. So any of these weekends are still very much so in play. Like we're walking into Japan. Who knows what's going to happen between now and Japan, right? As far as developments, we got an extra weekend off. I mean, to our sadness, having a race weekend off as fans, but like for the teams, they're going to learn a lot from these first two race weekends and take a lot back. And we might even see some more fine tuning going on. Antonelli, by the way, Kimi Antonelli, a surprise driver of the day, which like, admittedly, I don't think anybody was expecting. And for a fact, I know that Kimi Antonelli certainly wasn't expecting it. We actually have a live reaction of Kimi Antonelli learning that he won the driver of the day, Kevin, if you don't mind. Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah. He didn't expect it anymore.
Minus the Corona.
Yeah. He's not old enough to drink yet. But nonetheless, I mean, I feel like this was everybody finding out that Kimi Antonelli won driver of the day. He had 20% of the vote.
That's what happened. It helps whenever you're young, Italian, and
good looking.
Well, I was going to say really good.
This is my second weekend in a row reminding people that there are good-looking drivers on this grid.
Hey, I mean, somebody's got to do it.
I mean, even Toto Wolff saying that this maybe it's your target fan base.
You have a Toto Wolff impression you want to use?
I don't think I would do a very good Toto Wolff impression. I don't think the accent would come to me the same way that like maybe a couple of like other impressions might. But this isn't the Tristan Does Impressions podcast. It's the Formula One podcast. But no, yeah, I mean that reaction speaks volumes. That's exactly how I think a lot of us felt. 20%. That's a lot for a guy who started in P8 and finished in P8. Overall, solid weekend for Antonelli. Apparently, he took some floor damage after the two Ferraris collided on lap 1. It cost him a few tenths per lap. So that kind of made sense as to why when Esteban Ocon eventually passed him for the net P7 on track, why he couldn't go back and chase him, why he was struggling to go catch Yuki Tsunoda before Yuki Tsunoda was thrown to the back of the grid for various reasons.
And we will be talking about Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, don't worry.
We'll be later.
We'll be talking about Yuki Tsunoda plenty today. Max Verstappen, a P4, called the car undrivable. Lawson, rough day at the office, started P20, only made up a few places on track over the Stake/Sauber team. The results speak for themselves. I mean, if you're watching this episode, you absolutely know what's going on there. Moving on to Ferrari, Went from a P1, P5 in the sprint to a P5, P6 on track in China. And then the hammer came down. The hammer of FIA justice came down.
Yeah.
Disqualified Lewis Hamilton for a skid plate infraction. Apparently the margin was 0.4 millimeters, which representatively is like this much. And you would have to zoom in massively. Yeah, basically, it's like paper thin. Like, the size of your card there. Super, super, super thin margins, but the regulations are what they are. He was the only driver to have that issue coming out of China. Charles Leclerc disqualified for weight, was a pound or a kilo under the weight restriction. So both Ferraris, after the highs of winning a sprint, disqualified to reach the bottom lows of the Chinese Grand Prix, alongside Pierre Gasly, by the way, of all people, also disqualified for weight.
Don't let them forget that Pierre Gasly also was part of the DQ. It wasn't just the Ferraris, okay?
Yep. He also went to Dairy Queen. So Aston Martin, by the way, got to give some props out to Lance Stroll. Another points weekend. He has yet to fail to score points.
Did you say you're giving props to Lance Stroll?
I sure am.
You want to do that one more time?
I will give Lance props as
We're not dreaming, ladies and gentlemen.
Look, Formula One fans, we can all have our feelings about the drivers on the grid. I think that's perfectly fine, but I'm not going to be above giving people credit when credit is due. And Lance Stroll, through 3 different point scoring formats this season, 2 races and a sprint, has not scored. He has found points every single opportunity that's been given to him. He's doing a solid job so far this season. He is staving off the "you're going to get replaced by Max Verstappen" rumors. Dad's going to make an executive decision.
You know who else has been doing a really good job at getting points? And I'm going to take the floor here.
Go ahead.
Because my prediction, Williams, 17 points so far this year, tied with Ferrari.
Yep.
4th in the standings as it sits right now. 17 points.
Yeah.
I believe that's more or the same as they had all year last year.
That is the exact same amount as they had all of
last year. And that's including the fact that Carlos Sainz was DQ'd or DNF'd the first race of the season.
You want to hear another fun fact about Carlos Sainz? I learned this post Chinese Grand Prix. I made sure to write it down. You guys probably wonder why I'm looking at my notes so much, but I like to write. Look, Carlos has been driving in a repaired chassis so far this season. So a chassis that was broken during last year's championship has carried over into this year's championship. So he's going to get a new one here soon.
Are we saying that we're blaming Logan Sargent for that?
We're not blaming Logan Sargent, but he is going to be getting a new chassis at some point soon. But it's reasonable to speculate, that Carlos Sainz possibly has been dealing with some performance issues, not because of himself, but because of just the resource management that Williams have had to do going into this season. Haas also point scorers, Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon, following the double disqualification from Ferrari. I mean, in my personal opinion, I was really surprised, and I think a lot of us were surprised. TLPs, you were probably surprised that the driver of the day did not go to Ollie Behrman after absolutely dog walking the back half of the grid. He made those mediums work. Stake had a pretty oof weekend. Not much really to say there. They finished behind Liam Lawson, which for all intents and purposes probably isn't a great thing right now. Alpine, Jack doing a P13 besides the DQ for Pierre Gasly. He was pretty close to his teammate. So a scuffle in the sprint, but otherwise things were pretty solid. So, I mean, that pretty much sums up the entire thoughts recap for me. Anything else you wanted to talk about from China?
No, I just wanted to keep saying ciao, and I'll probably keep doing it as the episode goes on, because I think he needs to copyright that. I think he needs to get that slogan taken care of, because that is iconic.
Speaking of copyrights, I think Max might have done something with Simply Lovely, because
he has his own clothing line now.
He's got his own clothing. Well, he's had his own clothing line kind of, but like he's leaning in on the Simply Lovely, like
it looks good. It
trademark that he's kind of got going. It's his own little personal,
Simply Lovely, of course.
What is it called? His phrase, his catchphrase.
Yeah, that's definitely his thing for sure.
Yeah. And if other people use it, he gets pissed off about it. So But that's pretty cool. That's another fun thing that's come out of this past weekend. Moving on to the storylines that we had going into the Chinese Grand Prix. I'm going to eliminate that the weather was going to maybe be a factor. It wasn't. The rookies, I'm not really going to have to go over all that. We kind of talked about that at length. And the flight impacts, I don't know if it really had so much of an impact.
It wasn't anything that was really talked about on anything regarding to the race, or
Nobody
it seemed like everything kind of got smoothened out and figured out.
Yeah, nobody seemed to be complaining about the flight delays when it came to the actual performance of the cars on the weekend. So something that was interesting, but didn't actually end up becoming much of a problem. But I do want to start with McLaren and their wing. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but
it was a massive talking point.
It was a massive talking point, and I think they were definitely affected. They went from killing laps. They had a 15-second lap gap, over Max Verstappen in Australia. Thin margins to keep things going, really, in Australia on the dries. They were putting up insane lap times, and then this comes down, and obviously they still ended up getting a 1-2. It's not like the performance was massive. It killed them from winning races, but the field's tightened up because of this.
Yeah, it has tightened up, and you could tell. And like I said, it wasn't a dominant weekend by McLaren whatsoever. Ferrari looked good in the sprint. They looked good in the sprint qualifying. Obviously, Oscar turned it on. He had a really good weekend, but just like we talked about earlier, this is not by any way, shape, or form decided by McLaren. This is not going to be a McLaren runaway season or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we knew that it was going to, I want to say the word we used was, it was going to hinder McLaren, but it wasn't going to stop McLaren from dominating. It wasn't going to stop them from being good. And it's not going to do that for any of the teams. Don't get it wrong. It wasn't just McLaren trying out the flexi wing operation. And, they responded as they needed to, and they made the adjustments that they needed to, and they moved on. But it was a massive talking point, and it looks like that they're going to be able to get it figured out.
Yeah, everybody on the grid was more or less affected by it in one way or the other. But, I mean, it really did narrow down that gap. I've talked about it a couple times. I mentioned it earlier, but 11 seconds to the next constructor is a much closer finish than it sounds. I think if you're within about that 10 to 15 second mark, you're really just not that far away when it comes to lap over lap. That means like you're maybe only giving up a tenth or two, or you know what I mean? Like over the course of the entire race,
right.
Some variables here and there, but that's a lot closer than I think McLaren were expecting things to be. The conditions were super favorable for them, and still being that close to the competition behind, everybody's got work to do. I mean, McLaren are obviously off to a great start here, but you've said it over and over again. Like anything can absolutely happen during any one of these race weekends.
I mean, it was this time last year that we thought Red Bull was going to run away with it.
Yeah.
Right? Because Max had such a dominant start to the year. We didn't know that Checo Perez forgot how to drive a car, and we were like, oh, Red Bull might run away with it once more. And it took a heavy turn.
No, that's an excellent point. Speaking of Red Bull, great transition. We asked, can Liam Lawson pull together a strong weekend? And, well, if you keep up with anything F1 news related, he certainly did not. And in fact, breaking news, if you're hearing it for the first time here on the Lap Podcast, make sure to subscribe. First off, drop a comment and let us know your reaction to this. TLPs, whether you're fresh to this podcast or not, let us know what your thoughts are on this. Liam Lawson has already, after 2 races with the Red Bull Racing team, been replaced by his former teammate with the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, Yuki Tsunoda. A lot of fans really thought that he was spurned for this. We both had some mixed opinions on it originally. I still had mixed opinions on it as far as the decision, but I think both drivers had a case to make that leap after last season.
If I may here, Tristan, because I wanted to record a solo. I wanted to record a solo about this because I did feel so strongly about this, and I had so many opinions about this, but I did want to save it for the podcast. I want to say 2 things. One, congratulations to Yuki. He's deserved this opportunity for a long time. We talked about it a lot last year where, hey,
100%.
Yuki should absolutely be at least in the part of the decision-making for this final Red Bull seat. So 1, congratulations, Yuki. You deserve this opportunity. 2, this is another abominable decision-making process by Red Bull. You give no notice to Lawson. He finds out through the internet.
Yeah, apparently he found out through social media.
And you give him only 2 races to the side. That's not fair to anybody. That's especially not fair to a rookie driver. That's not fair to Lawson at all. So it's a mixed opinion between
Is he a rookie though? I'm just kidding.
I get it. But it's not fair to Lawson for him to find out the way he found out. Red Bull has done a terrible job, no matter who's calling those shots, of informing drivers of their future, of informing drivers of what's happening, and keeping up with their decision making. Other than Max, you never really know what they're going to do. You kept Checo for the entirety of the year, and he was overall screwing you over in points, but you replaced Lawson after 2 races and a car that even Max said is undrivable. That doesn't seem very fair to me at all. And it never felt like Lawson got a fair shake. And I do want to talk about this because I don't know how true this rumor may or may not be, but I do want to talk about it just in case it is the case. There was a little bit of speculation, and merely just calling it speculation, that the possibility of Franco Colapinto being called in for the VCARB seat rather than Lawson. And allegedly this has been denied, that Franco is not going to be signed over from Alpine. But if that did happen and Lawson ended out being out of F1 in its entirety, that would just be a complete shame. A complete shame. Now, like I said, I don't know the possibilities of that. I don't think that's going to end up happening. But the possibility of that even happening was sad. And this is a really sad situation for Liam. He doesn't deserve this quick of a decision-making. He's shown to be a very competitive, a very trustworthy driver in the past. 2 races is not enough time for anybody to show anything at all. It hasn't. That's just not fair. And even like I said, Max said the car's undrivable. And I think this is another good time to bring up what Alex Albon said about that car. And I'll pull up the video, or I'll pull up the post now. But look, we can go through and we can look at the list of drivers that.
Oh, wrong one.
Yeah, here we go. This is the list of drivers that Max has drove aside during his time at Red Bull. Look at all of these drivers, man. Look at all these differences. And Alex Albon spoke on this a little bit of time ago, speaking on, well, yeah, Red Bull really do tool the car to Max's specifications. And we spoke on it a little bit last week as well. Is like, okay, is this car going to be drivable for anybody? Or is this going to be hey, this is going to be Max dominating, and we're hoping the Max wins the Drivers' Championship year in, year out. We don't really care about the constructors. We want Max to be the best driver that there's ever been. That seemingly is their goal. And if that's the case, then hey, don't go in and replace drivers after 2 races because you know that car is only designed for Max. That's not fair at all. So I think the fact that Albon spoke on this, someone that has been in that seat under that same pressure next to Max, and now Yuki's going in here. Yuki, you've got a lot of expectations to live up to, but I'm happy that you're getting the seat. Thank you for letting me talk about that. I've literally had that brewing on for a while, but this sucks for Liam. I'm excited for Yuki. We'll see what happens for Red Bull.
I think you share a lot of the same sentiment as I do, which is, yeah, I mean, it's a very harsh decision. Red Bull are also known for making those types of decisions.
Marco doesn't believe in crying. Remember that.
Hey, but Isaac Hadjar still has his seat. Look, we're going to learn a few things with this. And most notably, what we're going to learn is it the driver or is it the car? Because as we've detailed here over the last couple episodes, there are real questions as far as the car performance. Max Verstappen has been very vocal about the car performance being almost undrivable. You do have to kind of tailor a car that can work for both of your drivers, or at least be drivable within a bigger spectrum. And Red Bull, you pointed it out, and you've talked about this. I've talked about this. Alex Albon has that very notorious moment talking to, if I'm not mistaken, the High Performance podcast, a little bit of a ways back. It's tough to drive. And if even Max is complaining about how challenging this car is to drive, imagine how hard it must be to be a Liam Lawson. We're going to learn a lot at the Japanese Grand Prix. For Yuki Tsunoda, yeah, I'm incredibly excited for him. He's getting an opportunity to drive with the senior team. He's been trying to get this opportunity since coming into this sport. Let's see, what year did Yuki come in here? I thought I'd written it down. I want to say it was 2021, 2022, something like that. His first season racing for AlphaTauri, now VCARB, now finally getting that shot, much to the chagrin possibly of a Christian Horner who did not want to give him that opportunity, who did not want to really give him that shot. There was a lot of criticism for the insider feeling of, well, we're keeping Yuki,
But we don't really want
but
to
it's
keep
commercial
Yuki.
and it's because of the Honda partnership. But
Right.
Yuki has shown the signs of progression over the entire course of his career in Formula One. He's shown a growth when it comes to the maturity side of things. So for him, I'm incredibly excited that he is getting this shot in his home race in Japan. He's worked really hard for this. However, that is also pressure. You're walking into a very volatile, very, very hot seat, right? You've got 2 races in theory to prove yourself if you're Yuki Tsunoda that it is in fact the driver and it is not the car. That's the state of play here.
Now, let me pose a question to you because you know a lot more about these particular things than I do. And you may or may not know this. And if he doesn't, we're just going to cut it out. So, but say that they do bring up Yuki. Well, they are going to bring up Yuki, right?
Because they are doing an actual swap. So we'll get a real comparison. By the way.
So we are. So we're going to get a race or two or such. Is it possible if Red Bull was like, hey, you know what? We brought Yuki up for a few races and we're like, we actually do want Lawson back, and they do another swap. Is that a possibility?
So Red Bull have control over all those contracts.
Well, because it's their sister team. Yes.
Well, but quite literally, like they own the contracts for all 4 of those drivers.
Right.
So it's Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. They're separate teams, but like they're all owned by Red Bull. They are the sister team.
Yes.
So is it possible? Yeah. Is it unprecedented? Probably.
Well, I mean, at this rate, just give 2 races to Isaac Hadjar, give 2 races to Lawson, give 2 races to Yuki, and just swip them all over again. And then we'll just decide on our full-time driver next year.
But I just don't think overall, I think
joking,
anybody believes that isn't a good philosophy. I think that Yuki I think if the expectation for Yuki really is going to be like, just be better than Lawson, I mean, maybe he could probably place it maybe like 1 or 2 spots higher. You just don't know. Like, this is going to be a really interesting experiment because of the timetable here. It's insane that they dropped him after 2 races. Like, on paper, Alex Albon had double-digit amounts of races. Pierre Gasly had double-digit amounts of races. Everybody else that's driven alongside Max Verstappen has had double digits at the very least opportunity. Pierre Gasly is the only guy, if I'm not mistaken, to have the second least amount of opportunity, and he had like 16 to 18 races.
And not only that, it's 2 races, but one of those races, I'm not saying you can't count it, but on a completely different surface in the middle of pouring rain for the first race of the season. Yes, like I get it. It does count as a race, but it's not even 2 full real tries at, hey, show us what you got. Because everybody talks about in the rain, it levels the playing field, right? You don't know what's going to happen in the rain. But I get it. We can say whatever we want. A rookie driver, nevertheless.
But even guys like Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, and then all the other rookies
we saw how many crashes there were. Yes. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, even 2 races, but even then it's like it wasn't even 2 like real opportunities to showcase his talent and an opportunity like on real surface, I guess. I'm not saying that it's not a real race, but I think you know what I'm saying. Like, the raining obviously adds to the element. I do want to say this.
And I wanted to mention, by the way, like the downside for Yuki Tsunoda, because we've mentioned positives, a little bit of negative, but like he's going to join a long list of Max's teammates that so far have all been dropped or forced out. He's going to join Liam Lawson, the latest in that line alongside Max. Sergio Perez obviously had a lot longer of a tenure. Alex Albon, we've mentioned. Pierre Gasly, we mentioned. Daniel Ricciardo left Red Bull because he wanted the opportunity to potentially go win a championship. Danny's career went the way it went, but even Daniel Kvyat, going back to 2015, it is not easy. In fact, it might even be the tallest task in Formula One to be Max Verstappen's teammate. I'll own it. Like, I was incredibly hard on Checo Perez last year. I'm willing to give him a little bit more grace with all this in context now, because if it really is the car, which we might find out at the Japanese Grand Prix, if Yuki Tsunoda can't score points in this car, it's going to do 2 things. First off, it's going to show A, yes, this car is really hard to drive, but B, Max is insane. For how, like, with the skill level to be able to still elevate it to a possible podium.
Well, not only, but here's the thing to think about too, right? Is if the car is really that hard to drive, then how long is it going to be before Max is like, hey, I actually do want to leave because you can't pair me with anybody and give someone else a good car to compete with me. Like, maybe he only wants to win drivers' championships. I don't know, but I think ideally he would also want to compete for constructors. I don't know.
My pushback on this is that the development's going to just start going in a different direction.
Yeah.
So like they've been trying to tailor this to reach the heights that Max can take it. But at the end of the day, the team is trying to score the most amount of constructor points. It is a team sport.
Of course.
There's the incentives to win are like over 100 million, like $130 million as a team. So Max can still score all the points and be fantastic, and the car is still going to be good. But overall, you want to build the best overall car. You want to build a car that's going to get you the most amount of points. Max Verstappen on his best weekend right now can only get you 25 points.
Yeah.
If you're only scoring 25, that's not going to be enough to win a constructors.
No.
It might be enough to win you a drivers by yourself.
Right.
But it's not a guarantee.
And that's what I'm
certainly
saying.
not a guarantee.
But that's what I'm saying. Do
so
you think
the car will probably regress a little bit away from Max, but it could even up to the next driver. But that's where the cost deficit comes in
but
too.
That's what I'm saying.
Is the car now hovering around P3 on speed, P4 with Ferrari, depending on the weekend, and then immediately becomes the immediate P4
but
if it drops off on quality.
But do you think that frustration will build for Max to the point where he's like, okay, I'm going to leave Red Bull because they won't give me a legit teammate to actually compete with?
I think, look, let's be completely honest and fair here. Max is an ultimate competitor. He's not so much concerned with his teammates if he's winning.
That's what I'm saying.
So, like, if he can win, admittedly, he's going to look at his teammates and go, look, like, y'all got to pick it up. There was something interesting in that same interview we've cited from Alex Albon. Alex Albon said that part of his selling point to getting into a Williams, for instance, was his ability to go, look, I kept track of this when Max was driving a car that was like P3, right? Like it wasn't winning every weekend during the last regulation set. He was only like, I think 2 to 3 tenths behind him consistently, but the drop off between that third place car to fourth place car to a winning car was like, if you're 2 to 3 tenths back, you're P12. Right. But when Max was dominating the field, his selling point was, look, but the lap times, I was still closer to Max. If the car was as fast as it was, like I could have been putting up podiums consistently the way that Checo's putting up P5s. So like that's the way that like Alex Albon sold himself to other teams. And obviously he's already had a pretty decently long career. If the car isn't winning, yeah, like this is kind of the result that we're seeing come to fruition, where teammates who are not quite at that level, like if you have a more mid-level driver, let's just be completely honest here, like if that's where Liam Lawson is right now, ending up in P15, P16, P14 is maybe not as surprising because Max's ability and what he likes out of a car and the way that it's tailored to him versus the way that other drivers have to drive that car. Yeah, the results are probably going to vary widely if it's not Max winning by 20 seconds, I get a P3 and I'm within 10 seconds of the next guy.
All right, so let's end the Red Bull discussion storyline on this question, and I'll ask you, and then I'll give my opinion.
Yeah, and please, again, let us know TLPs in the comments, like your thoughts on this. If there's a lot of nuance to this debate, we really want to hear what you guys have to say.
Oh, for sure. What is a good first weekend for Yuki Tsunoda look like in Japan?
With the context of how tough that car might be, I would say P10 is a great weekend. Like if he hits a P10, I feel like we've learned something here. Like, okay, if he gets higher than that, I mean, it tells us a lot. It tells us for sure that it was a Lawson issue. But if Lawson is outperforming Yuki inversely, right, the way that Yuki and Hadjar had been outperforming Lawson in the VCARBs compared to the Red Bull, yeah, like maybe it is going to be a car issue. You know, like everything relies on the context. You know, we have to just see it. We could do the what if game. If Yuki scores P5, I mean, yeah, we could probably point at Lawson. And Lawson maybe just is more comfortable driving the VCARB, and maybe it suits his driving style a little bit better. Maybe there's just a easier threshold to drive that car. There's a lot of questions we're still going to have no matter what up until we see some results. I would want to give it at least a couple races, maybe even 3 races, because across, you know, those 2 weekends, we saw 3 different formats. We'll have to see what Yuki can do. But if Yuki can put up points, I don't see why Red Bull are going to swap him back.
I agree wholeheartedly. You get in the points if you're Yuki Tsunoda, you're already off to a better start than Lawson, obviously, but you're going to get the advantage of driving at your home race. You put up points, you get off to a good start. You combat that with another points finish and another points finish. I'll tell you this much. If Yuki can get 2 points finishes out of the next 3 races,
he's got the seat.
He's got the seat for the remainder of the year.
Hell, I wouldn't even be shocked if they start talking about extending his contract, because the big question we had for Yuki Tsunoda walking into this season, if you have watched our preseason podcast, was How does he going to prove himself?
Mm-hmm.
How does he stay on the grid in 2026 with the new regulations?
This
his contract is up after this season.
This is how you do it.
This is a prove it moment for Yuki on so many different levels. I know there's a lot of pressure. We've talked at length about the pressure that was applied to Liam Lawson. Yuki Tsunoda, if he walks in relaxed, kicks ass, this is going to be his seat. And I'm excited for him. I really am. And I'm really curious to see, again, just up and down. Max Verstappen, what does he do in Japan? Yuki Tsunoda, what does he do in Japan? Liam Lawson, we're going to find out a lot about him. Isaac Hadjar, we're going to find out a lot about him. There's going to be a lot that we're going to find out just within this little unit of 4. I'm really excited for it. And we're going to obviously talk about it a lot more on the next episode as we walk into Japan. We're probably going to get a little bit more information out of this situation too.
All right, moving on. Now we go to the Scuderia Ferrari, where things are not looking very good.
Yeah, my big question was Australia's struggle a one-off. Kind of, sort of, apparently not. The car seems about the 3rd fastest. I think you and I can probably agree on that. Depending on the weekend, it might be a little bit faster than the Red Bull right now, but it's definitely slower than the Mercedes. Excuse me. Strategy was better for the sprint, right? I mean, pretty easy to not mess up when you don't have to pit, but it didn't matter in the end with the disqualifications. So not a great start through 2 rounds. P8, P10, if I'm not mistaken, in Australia, and then sprint was fantastic. I mean, we all thought coming out of that sprint, oh my God, like Ferrari, they're here.
Yeah.
Like it was just a crazy weather weekend. We can toss it out. Here we are. I want to toss a fun thing that I learned as we were getting close to this podcast, though, which is the last time I think Ferrari won championships was a season where McLaren won the first 2 races.
Don't love that. Don't love that at all.
That's not ominous. But I feel like Ferrari are just in such a weird spot.
History repeats itself until it doesn't, Tristan.
Until it doesn't.
You know what they say.
But yeah, strategy I think was a little bit better. There are a lot of questions about the communication between Lewis Hamilton and his race engineer, and a little bit of what's the best way of putting it? I think F1 TV maybe made things look a little more stressful than they were.
A little bit dramatized.
Yeah, but in the end, just not a great start. Where are they placed at right now as far as the constructors pecking order? I want to say they're P5 right now. They're ahead of Aston Martin. I know Williams, you mentioned earlier, were ahead. Yeah, they are P5 currently, tied with Williams at 17 points apiece, only 3 points ahead of Haas. And then Aston Martin, Lance Stroll carrying the squad right now, 10 points. Yeah. How do you feel about Ferrari right now?
I feel the same way that I felt coming into the season. For many of the TLPs, if you remember, for our first episode of this year, I kind of lowered my expectations for Ferrari by a large margin.
Large marge? And
I would say getting off to a slow start, let's just call a spade is nothing new for Ferrari. It was surprising that Lewis got the win. Even Lewis was surprised that he got the victory for the sprint.
Oh, he was surprised when he got pole.
Yeah. So it kind of shows you what they're expecting for this year. I think P4, I think 4th fastest on the grid is, because you said they're 3rd fastest on the grid.
It's between them and Red Bull right now.
I think it's between them and Max. I think it's between the Ferraris and Max.
That's a very fair way.
Who drives the car the fastest? I think if Max is on a good track, he has a good weekend, and the car's ready, I think Max is faster. If not, then I think the Ferraris are just a slight bit quicker. Of course, placing Mercedes 2nd and McLaren 1st, but I don't think Ferrari's gotten off to the start that a lot of Ferrari fans were hoping for. But for me personally, Ferrari has looked exactly how I thought they were. And that is a slow start, hoping the upgrades help the season tremendously.
I think slow start's kind of the name of their game. I can't remember. At least
so it's botching calls.
Well, like since 2022 is the last time I think we saw them start off like anywhere close to the front, when they were still battling with the Red Bulls, and a season arguably that they let slip away because of bad strategy. So 2023 obviously dominated by Red Bull. Last year, McLaren and Red Bull pretty much highlighted the season. But because of how that season ended, because they were still able to finish P2, and because of the trajectory we saw that car going in, I think we all expected they were going to walk into the season and be within at least a couple tenths of McLaren. And right now, they just wildly seem inconsistent. They're going to take this weekend that we have off before Japan, and I think they're going to utilize that time to just regroup, recenter, and get focused. Fred Vasseur, for as fun of a personality as we see him in media,
very serious guy.
This dude knows what he's doing,
yeah.
And he knows how to build a winning culture. He knows how to build a winning team. This is the best driver lineup on the grid still, in my opinion. I think they're going to start figuring stuff out. We will see Ferrari win Grand Prix weekends this year. That I still feel that way. And because Lewis got that early success, like the taste is there to make it happen again.
Of course.
We just need to see them being more consistent. And I want to move on to round out these storylines. Mercedes, I didn't really have a major one. I just wanted to see what we could learn with a non-crazy ass weather weekend. And we learned that the pace is real.
The pace is real with that car.
The post GP, it sounds like they think that they can catch McLaren this year. Toto Wolff saying just about as much, with some upgrades from what I understand that are already in the works. Mercedes are not waiting until 2026 to see how competitive this lineup is.
They look really good. As a McLaren fan, I wouldn't say I'm scared more than I'm just excited. I want a battle. I want there to be some competition.
The ratings on the podcast are going to be outrageous.
But no, like it's really fun. It's really exciting to have competition, and especially with competition not including Red Bull. It's kind of the name of the game for F1 the past few years. It's like, okay, who won? It was Max Verstappen. Okay, who won? It was Red Bull.
Yeah.
And right now it doesn't feel like that anymore. It's like, okay, McLaren are kind of the team that dominate, but Mercedes is looking really quick. They're looking really good. George has taken on the personality of a leader, and he has flown with it. He's done extremely well. Kimi is doing his job. He's doing his job and more as a rookie. I'll say that much. And we talked about it a little bit off air that he was definitely put in the best position of all the rookies to succeed,
for sure.
But not taking that any away from his talent or what he's done. He's looked absolutely incredible, going for some very gutsy overtakes. Kimi is everything that he's promised to be so far, and he's just a rookie, just 18 years old. Merely just out of the womb. And the Mercedes look quick. They look scary. They look like they could really mess around this year and cause some problems for McLaren and the constructors. And I guess if Ferrari want to get in this battle, them too.
God, I hope so. No, I mean, you laid it out there pretty well. George Russell has taken on that team leader role pretty strongly. It looks like the chemistry between the two drivers is really good as well. Kimi Antonelli's getting along really well with drivers, not just in Mercedes, but like we've seen a couple of clips like during the drivers' parades of them have good relationships with like Max and stuff too. So yeah, Mercedes, they seem like they're in a really good spot right now. We're only 2 rounds in. We got 22 races to go. I mean, I don't want to call out some crazy shot. I mean, I already said that Ferrari are probably going to win some races this year.
Do you see a win this year?
It seems a lot more possible now than what I thought we were going to be looking like coming out of practice. You know, the first testing sessions out of Bahrain, like this being 11 seconds away. Like I said, man, over a full race distance, that's a lot to hang your hat on.
I think you could see. Do I want to say this?
You think Kimi could win a race?
I was going to say, I think you could see a Kimi podium.
Yeah, I think at this level, you know, let's say George has something.
If they bring the upgrades necessary and they compete and they continue to build,
yeah,
I think that you could see a Kimi podium by the end of the year.
I think over the next 22 rounds, I would be surprised if he didn't at least land a 3rd place.
Yeah,
I'll put it like that.
Yeah.
Let's move on though. We got a couple of updates as far as like fan stuff. F1 25. We got to look at the covers. Let's see. Can we find this one here real quick for the people?
I got
there we go. There we go. The standard edition cover. We got your boy, the man from down under, the Chinese Grand Prix winner himself, Oscar Piastri, highlighting the left side of that cover. And
I'm glad they didn't put our OKX sponsor there, because then they might have to redo it.
Yeah, what's the deal with that, by the way?
I don't know. I don't sign endorsement deals for McLaren. I'm just assuming that they changed endorsements.
Because it wasn't there in the middle of, you know, it's like one of their biggest sponsors. I was just curious.
And then, which really sucks because it's a cool looking sponsor. OKX, shout, you know, we'll put it at wherever you want. We got it.
Put it right there.
I'll put it on my forehead. I don't care. It looks really cool. It's a cool looking logo. Obviously, Lando had a like blanket on his helmet.
So note to sponsors: Kevin will put your logo on his forehead.
I will do it. I will do it. No, this is a sick cover though. You get Ollie Behrman, the rookie. You get the smooth operator himself, and a and the Atlassian Williams. And then you a little bit of a changeup. You get Oscar Piastri. I think it's a good cover, but it's not like who you would expect, I guess you would say.
No, I think all three parts of this, I was pleasantly surprised to see like three drivers from these three drivers, excuse me. So like this is pretty cool. I like it. It looks good.
I think we both said that we were going to get this. I need to get another rig. I have a wheel, but since moving, I had to get rid of my rig, so I need to get another rig. TLPs. If
I'm considering getting this.
Rig, you can just let me know.
I'm considering. Yeah. We'll have to get a post box, but. No, I am considering getting it. All the stuff I've been seeing media-wise coming out about this next game, it looks like there's a lot of little improvements. Cosmetically, it's going to look a little bit different as well. Apparently, there's some improvements to the like story mode aspect of this year's edition. So I'm excited. I think I might. I always wait, and maybe I'll advise the TLPs to do this too. I always wait until it drops, maybe give it a couple of days just to start seeing what people think. Because last year I did the same thing. I didn't buy it on release. I bought the 23 a little bit closer to release, but I want to wait because the sentiment from the fans last year was like the steering wasn't nearly as smooth.
I am the complete opposite. I will typically buy things early so that way I can play them early. My advice would be go on YouTube.com and try to find other creators that get it early and get their opinions.
Look, I mean, this is just a peek inside behind the curtain here about how I spend my money, but I want to make sure that I'm making a conscientious decision before I just hop on in. But no, we also have another cover for it.
Yeah.
Featuring the GOAT,
iconic
Lewis
edition.
Hamilton. Yeah.
Properly named. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm surprised about this. Like, it would kind of have been a missed opportunity if you didn't put Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari red on the cover.
Every cover
but
since the game's been coming out.
You kind of have to at this point.
I mean, he's the most marketable guy there is.
Well, I mean, there's 20 drivers. I mean, unless you want to put like Zach Brown on the cover and be like, oh, constructors edition.
I don't think Christian Horner would buy it.
Well, probably not. Probably not.
No, but it looks really good. The Ferrari red and yellow. I mean, it's all iconic.
Looks good. It does look good. I like it. I'm probably going to get the other version instead, but I don't know. I don't know how much the iconic edition is. Do we know how much?
I would argue it's probably gonna be like $10 more or $15 more. It'll come with some like neat cosmetics.
I don't know. Games nowadays are kind of really expensive.
I'm not a big microtransaction guy. I don't like getting the skins. Like I don't play Fortnite and get all the skins and stuff.
Okay.
I've been playing Witcher 3 lately. Little personal update for you TLPs.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't know. In case you guys are curious what I do in my free time. No, is there anything else we wanted to cover on this episode? Anything?
See if I can get the price.
Oh man. Let's see. They don't have anything updated for that.
No, they do.
Let's see. Pre-order. Oh man, they're making you work for this. This is really good. This is quality podcasting.
That's how you know it's expensive when they don't show you at first.
Yeah, but it looks like there was a couple of cosmetic things available for the for the iconic edition. Maybe you'll get like a cool like Lewis Hamilton like helmet or something like that for your driver.
I don't know about all that. I don't think they're gonna do that.
I mean, that'd be pretty sick. I might do that. Oh yeah, we get the F1 movie. Some new trailers have dropped. I know you and I are definitely excited about that.
Yeah, we're talking about possibly going to it together. Or something.
Little the lap podcast date night. Me and Kevin go watch.
I'm sure your wife and my girlfriend are gonna love that.
They're gonna love it.
They're like, oh, y'all don't spend enough time together anyway.
Yeah, if you guys watch the shorts, we watch the sprint together. But look. We'll figure out all those details at some other time. Kevin's working as hard as he possibly can to figure out these prices, but
what the heck, man?
Look, let's just wrap this thing up. Look, that's all we got this week. Next week, we're going to hype up the Japanese
$59.99 for the standard edition.
Wow.
Not terrible. I mean, that's kind of what
it's $60. Okay, so $79.99.
And then $80 for the iconic edition.
Wow.
So $20.
Wow. Look, if you watched all the way to the end and you aren't subscribed for this premium content, I mean, I don't know what you're doing. Speaking of which,
we bring you the information that no one else does, okay?
You couldn't Google this yourself, TLPs. Look, I'm going to try that outro one more time. That's all we got this week. Next week, we're going to hype up the Japanese Grand Prix, bring our predictions. We're going to refresh you on our P10 standings, the reaction to all the latest news and drama. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It costs, once again,
let us know what you think about the background, by the way.
Yeah, let us know.
Tristan cooked, new background. We're going with the blue. We don't want to just be associated with red. So let us know what you think about it. Let us know what you want to change, what you like, what you don't like.
And I'll take it under advisement, and maybe we will. Maybe we won't. But look, It costs nothing to subscribe, to support the channel. Absolutely $0 down. Look, drop a comment, share it with your friends if you feel so bold. Follow us on all the socials. They've been scrolling at the bottom of the screen this entire time. So, if you want to support the two lads that put this thing together every week, feel free. Until next week, be safe, be well. I'm Tristan Ryans. That's Kevin Walker. Let's go racing.